Hi everyone, John here with Fountain Pen Love, and today I want to do a doodle video, and the name of this doodle is Pipes. Now if that sounds familiar, it's because I have done it previously on this channel, but it's been quite a few years, so I want to revisit it. This doodle looks very complicated, but in reality it's not that hard to do. There's also quite a few different variations that you can do with it, so I want to go over a few of those today so that you can try it out and see which one you like best. So if you're ready, go ahead and grab a pen and paper, and let's doodle. Now, as I mentioned, this doodle does look a little complicated, but if you get the basic patterns down, it's not too tough at all. So every single time I do this doodle, I always start with 3 parallel lines. So I just draw 3 in a row. And I like to make sure that the top and the bottom are fairly similar in height so that they all start and end at the same place. If they're a little bit off, it's not a big deal, but if they are a little different and you want to even them out, you can always add a little bit more to the top and bottom. So the next thing I do is I go ahead and go across and basically turn this into a T shape. And that is going to be your basic starting point for the pipes pattern. Now from here, there's a lot of different things you can do. The main thing I like to do is basically extend these 3 lines through to this other side. And there's a lot of things you can do once they come out here. You can have them loop back around, you can have them go straight, you can have them, cut this part off here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and have them come across and come down the end here. Just like that. Now with this, the one thing I always want to make sure of is you'll notice I started with this inside pipe, the rightmost one here first, because that is going to be the first one that comes down over here. If I were to start with this farthest one and come across here, you'll see I don't have anywhere else to go with these other 2. So I always want to make sure and figure out which one is going to cross this opening here and use and draw that line first. So let's say I want to go ahead and continue this one and have it wrap around here. You'll see I'm not going to draw this one first to go here. I'm going to draw this bottom one and have it wrap around and cut off right here. I'll go ahead and do these next 2. And now we have our pattern started. And from here, you can just keep on going. Now, I would suggest that you don't just keep wrapping it in onto itself because you're gonna wrap this up pretty quickly and have nowhere else to go. So sometimes you'll just wanna take this one here, for example, and just extend it on out and just have it stop. So it doesn't turn, it doesn't cross any others. Now you have another intersection where we have all these open pipes, ends of what I call pipes here, that can eventually come down and cross with this. I'm thinking this needs to come across here. One thing I do want to point out though is when you leave yourself a really short little stub here, it's going to be really hard to do anything with. So you have 2 options when you have a piece like this. You can either have something go across it like we did here, and that way you just cut it off and you don't have to worry about doing anything with it, or you can draw a circle on it. Now for this particular one, I'm gonna have it crossed off, but I'll show you the circle that I'd like to do next. So for this, I'm just gonna take this and have it loop right back around here. And now you can see it's going to be really easy to pass this on through. We don't have to worry about this little stub of pipe sticking out here. But let's say, for example, I didn't want to do that, and instead I wanted to, like I say, add a circle. What I can do is just do something like this. And it basically gives you a pass through. So you don't have to cross pipes across the bottom of this one. You can just have it basically go through this circle here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loop this into here so these 2 connect. And that's a really easy way to just quickly close up a set of pipes and not have to extend it anymore. And you can see that really quickly and easily fixed this. Now I still have this loose one hanging out here, which can be a little tricky. Personally, I like to connect everything up so that you know, I don't have any open pipes hanging out there. So we have this one that needs to pass through down here, and we have this one. I think what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of this video, to make this short and sweet so I can show you a few other things, I'm going to draw one more loop on here. And then I'm going to probably rotate my paper a little bit, get my bearings. I'm going to come draw this one around here. Okay. All right, and there we have all of the open pipes. There's nothing that is sticking out. There's nothing that needs closed. Everything is completely, it's a closed loop basically. So I like to make mine a lot larger than this, but like I said, for this video, I'm really just kind of trying to give you some of the basic techniques. So in this, we've got this, you know, we started off with this T right here. You can see it still exists. And then we just kind of extended some of these out, drew some of these circles, and we ended up with this little closed loop. Now, another thing I like to do is fill in this blank space to make it look a little more full. So I always like to fill in these little areas on each side of this loop, so it kind of looks like a shadow in there. You can also fill in these spaces up here, you know, any of these smaller spaces between pipes. Now, if you wanted to, if you were going to make this larger, a lot of this would be filled in with other pipes passing through from other parts of your doodle. In this one, I don't have anything else going. I'm not going to add anything else, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and fill this all in. So I'll do that really quickly here, and you can see how it looks. All right, and there you have it. This one is completely filled in. I think this is a fun little one if you wanted to do this just in a notebook. It, you know, takes just a few minutes. It's really simple to do. So if you make a small version like this, it is a really quick and easy practice. And it is just kind of fun to draw some lines, kind of figure it out. It's like a bit of a puzzle, figuring out how everything is going to connect up. And then you get to fill it in and color a little bit as well, which I always like to do. But let's do another one here. I want to show you some variations and different things that you can do with this. Okay. So the next thing you can do, you can see in this previous one I did, everything was rounded and it stayed fairly parallel. A few other variations that you can do, I'm just going to give you some examples here. You don't have to make the corners rounded. So if you wanted to start out with your 3 lines, go ahead and put a T across here, and you can go right angles if you want to and make square corners. Now, I have done a few like this in the past. I personally don't like them as much, but maybe you really like right angles, you like the more square look. Totally up to you. There isn't a right or wrong way to do this. This is just kind of, you know, it's a fun one that you can do and play with. So I would suggest you try both. The one thing about these square angles, unless you're really good at drawing straight lines, you can get a little off, like I am here. My squares are not exactly square. But you can see how it already looks a lot different from the last one that I just did. Let's go ahead and do a few more on here. Okay. And there you have it. This one is a very square version of that last one that I did. I'll go ahead and fill it in just so you can kind of compare it directly to the other one. All right, and there you have it. I do think it's a little easier to see what's going on when it's all filled in. So you can see the difference between these two. Very different feels with this square one versus this rounded one here. Now the previous two that I've shown you have been pretty orderly and open, but sometimes you might want to just completely fill one in and really take that space, and instead of coloring it, like I did here, you might want to fill this empty space with more lines and just have a really dense pattern. You could totally do that. Another thing to keep in mind is you don't have to have all of these lines running parallel to each other. They can all kind of get off center, off of the grid. They don't even have to connect with each other if you don't want them to. So let's do an example where it's just a little more chaotic, not as well ordered, and just kind of have a lot of lines filling in this space here. So when we do that, again, I think pretty much I'm always starting off, oops, I guess my pen just ran out of ink, so we're gonna go back to this one. So I'm pretty much always gonna start off with a 3 parallel line configuration and cross that up with a T up here, like a crossbar basically. And this is pretty much always my starting configuration. But what I wanna do, one thing I didn't show you yet, is that you can take and if you want to close the end of this, you can just start right here and come like that. And you can already see we're going to run into some complications, which is totally fine for this one. But if I were to extend this down, it's going to run into this here. So we're going to have to just get a little creative, and we're going to do that by going like this. And you can already see the line density is going to be a lot higher. We have a lot more lines in a smaller amount of space. And so we're just going to have a lot of lines packed into this particular doodle. I really like doing some variations like this where it kind of like overlaps and crosses on itself a lot of different times. Sometimes when I get to a situation like this where I have 2 sets of pipes that are kind of really in parallel with each other, what I like to do to keep them visually separate is go ahead and fill in this space between the 2. So if you remember, each set of lines or pipes, each set of pipes is 3 lines, and so we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is the space between them. And so if I just color that in, then we can see the separation between these 2 here. You don't have to do that. You could totally just leave it a bunch of lines. That does make it look more dense when you don't have this colored in space. But I do kind of like to have this separation in here, and it just helps me visually remember what the heck is going on. Now you see what I just did here? I've just made some lines come out of here. This pipe comes out of nowhere. It doesn't connect with anything over here, and that's totally fine. Sometimes when you want this density, you're just gonna draw lines and pipes that don't connect with anything else or don't have a good starting point and just make some new ones. So it is totally fine to do that. It is just depending on what kind of look you're going for. You can also just draw something like this to fill in some space if you want to. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and kind of start wrapping this one up. What I like to do when I have this big open space here and I want it to look more dense is just add some more lines. So they're not necessarily pipes, they don't go anywhere, but they do follow the pattern that I already have established. And then maybe I just fill in this little space here. Go ahead and fill in some of these spaces. And I like to kind of fill in space as I go every little bit, just to kind of get a feel for how my space is being used, what I have left that I might want to fill in, or go ahead and draw some more pipes in. Okay, so I really like the density of this. I like how things are coming out. I have kind of stuck to the overall square pattern. Everything's more or less parallel except for this piece out here. So I think maybe I'll kind of balance this out with a little more out here that's not quite as parallel. I feel like that is a little more balanced here. You know what I'm gonna do, since these basically touch, this is kind of a space I can fill in. I don't want to color it, but I'm just gonna add a few more lines in here just to kind of fill it in a bit. Let's go ahead and color that one in. Oh, you know what? That actually looks like this one comes through here, so. And then even though this is technically an open space, I'm gonna go ahead and just fill it in. Because why not? It's my doodle, I can do what I want. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call this good. You could see how just adding more lines, adding more density really changes the feel of the doodle. Also, when you don't have lines that are parallel to each other, it adds a little more flowiness, a little more organic feel to it. So I do like to do this once in a while. I will say I have a much, much harder time doing doodles like this than like this. For some reason, doing this is really easy for me where I have more parallel lines. I love the look of this one though, but for some reason, when I don't make everything connect up, sometimes I have a really hard time with that. So I feel like this is easier because everything logically has to connect to itself. This one, it doesn't, and I don't always like that. So love the way it looks. I have a really hard time doing it. So what do you think? Which one is your favorite? Which one is easier for you? So let me know in the comments, once you've tried them both, which one you like better. I'll see you next time with more doodle videos.